Please welcome on stage Anton Sokolov, Marketing Manager at Brokeree Solutions, who will introduce the panel. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. How are you all feeling? Exhausted? Excited? Come on, give us energy.
I'm a bit of both, I won't lie.
Yes, my name is Anton Sokolov. I'm Marketing Manager at Brokeree, and I'll be moderating this session. We'll try to make it as engaging and as enticing as possible, and then we'll see where it goes. So today with me I have Marcus Fetherston from PropTradeTech.
Thank you, nice to be here.
And Tatiana Pilipenko from Brokeree Solutions.
Thanks for coming, guys.
And they can introduce their companies themselves, and then we'll start.
Sure, so I hail from PropTradeTech. We work on managed solutions for prop trading firms, technology, CRM, trader dashboards, and consult with private firms as well.
And I'm from Brokeree Solutions. We are a technology provider for MetaTrader brokers, for retail brokers, in terms of money management, risk management, liquidity management, and so on.
All right. How many of you from the audience have been to the panel yesterday about prop trading? Any of you? I think you were.
I'm sure he was there.
All right. Yeah. We'll briefly touch upon the the basics and like how it emerged, evolved, and then we dive deeper into the brokerage side of things. We'll focus today on how the brokers should go about that, whether they should go at all, and let's see where it goes. So, Marcus, let us start with you, with the most experience on the panel. Just briefly, what is prop trading in a nutshell?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think prop trading gives traders the ability to test their trading skills in an evaluation stage, on a paid challenge, see how they go, pass, fail, and on the basis of passing, get access to further earning potential, with less upfront capital than they would need at a brokerage. I mean, that's the short of it at the end of the day. Can take many different shapes, these evaluations, these challenges, but ultimately, yeah, it's people testing their skills to see if they're worthy of access to more capital and trading ability to earn from.
But hasn't prop trading been for a while? I mean,
exactly. So look, obviously we have our traditional idea of a prop trading firm, a company that trades with its own money. Maybe they test out traders, they hire them, on an ongoing career basis. But I think the trend we've seen emerge in the last 5 years or so, especially in the last 1 to 2 years, is this different, online, modern retail take on prop trading. We've seen firms, such as FTMO, really start this trend a while ago, which has built momentum. And it's this idea of building it into a more online e-commerce digital product. People come in, they test it. It's a much more automated, ongoing fashion than, say, your classic, job interview, come in, work for a prop firm. So in the same way, we saw this happen in Forex brokers. Access to a Forex broker was, a lot harder, say, 30, 40 years ago, and then it became more of an online retail experience. Prop trading is going through the same trend now, so that's, how I sort of compare it to what a lot of people in the room are used to from the past.
Fair enough. Tatiana, want something to it?
I just wanted to ask about more the difference between traditional and the challenges part of prop trading. So what about the differences between these two?
Yeah, and I mean, there's quite a lot. I'd say, look, obviously in a traditional prop firm from a long time ago, it's a much different process, to undergo evaluation, to get access to capital, to trade for a firm. It's something that requires, a lot more capital from the firm and a lot more experience, as a trader. It's more of like a much long-scale, larger career move as such, where I think with this, it's given access to a wider range of people from a lot different demographics, as it is more online-based. It is more of a digital e-commerce experience to get on board, and the challenges operate in a much more direct, automated sense. People come in, they buy these evaluations, they're checking their ongoing performance in a dashboard. It's taken what I think was a much more larger scale institutional product and turning it retail. And that's more, I think, the difference between what we're seeing now and what was done, say, 20, 30 years ago or so.
Tatiana, maybe you could comment on from your experience, why do you think the modern prop trading took off? What was the reason for popularity of the new?
I'm not going to surprise anybody. I think regulations. right? I mean, now what we're looking at is that a lot of prop trading firms are appearing somewhere in the States, for example. And the regulations there, I mean, it's not a secret, right? Quite strict. And prop trading is going around it. So it's just easier to open something like that rather than opening a retail. I mean, it's not a hub for retail brokers there at all, like Dubai or Cyprus. That's why it's just a new way, easier and faster, I would say, right, to just start up a company and get into this financial sectors, financial business. So, Marcus, do you want to add anything here?
Yeah, look, I think there's always going to be, to be transparent, an element of the regulation side of it for some people who have entered the space. But I think at the core of this modern prop trading product, it literally goes back to the fundamental psychology of traders. Traders love upside and they don't like downside. And traders like, a lot of great traders out there lack access to capital. And this is a pathway for them a lot of the time. You come in and you put money down on this evaluation, that's your downside. If you prove yourself, if you pass the evaluation, the upside for you is much larger. The reason I say it took off is if you look at, say, $500 for an evaluation, if you put that in a brokerage account and you're Warren Buffett, the returns you could get in a year on $500, you'd make more money working in a coffee shop. But I think what this product does is it enables a lot of people that didn't have access to capital, who are great traders, to prove themselves and, enter that arena of sort of a larger earning potential. And that appeals to a lot of people too. At the core of a lot of people want to become career traders. They want that access. But previously it was, here's a brokerage account. And even then it was hard for a lot of people to get brokerage accounts as well. So this sort of, I think, is... there's a few ways to look at it from the regulatory point, but I think at the core of what traders are after, it's a product that services their needs directly. And I think the big thing is that a lot of this grew organically. I never saw it as a product that was, I think, forced on traders or brokers saying, you should do this, you should do that. When I think prop trading, this new version of it, it started to get big. I was on the broker side and people were coming in and asking about it. But it was kind of interesting when I looked at it. A lot of these firms, I was looking at online search traffic, and these firms were overtaking, in search traffic, a lot of legacy brokers. And you'd go into these communities, and they were communities. It wasn't like corporate companies serving client. It was, all these people in these Discords, Telegram channels, things like that, working together. And I think that borrowed a bit, partially, in my opinion, from some of what was happening in the crypto space. Was very community-led. And I think things like that grow a lot more organically than, businesses serving ads, which is traditionally more on the broker side. So that's sort of my take on why it grew and why it appeals to traders.
Well, I do agree, and I actually do like your point about the psychology of it, right? When we look at the, online courses, you can get pretty much all the information you want for free. But the courses which you pay for, you're much more likely to complete them. And I think the same mentality of traders goes also in here, where you are actually guided through the process, you're guided through the trading, some benchmarks with some analysis.
Exactly. Even the conversation with traders, I think the fact that they see the data in real time, they can see where they're doing well, where they're doing badly, is a lot more informative to them to improve their trading. Because it's kind of interesting. You see people who they might have, they might be a great trader. They've failed a challenge, and they react differently to a broker client because they're like, look, they're a lot more honest about their failure. Like, look, I failed. Look at this in the data. I did this, this, and this, and I can improve for the next challenge. And I found that really interesting. Is you see a lot of people in forums, and they're like, I failed, 4 challenges in a row, but because I did X, Y, and Z, I've gone through the 5th challenge. And you see that personal opinion here. So it's a bit more anecdotal. You see really the progress of a trader more through prop challenges than say, I put $200 at 500 to 1 leverage in a broker account and blew it up because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, where are the resources to teach them to continue as a trader? Where is sort of the risk management side given to them? And it's a different product, so it's fair enough. But I think that gives a bit more guidance to traders as they go into that journey, which is of more value to them long term.
Nothing to add. Well, I think we covered the basics pretty much, and everybody in the room should be on the same level to begin with, right? Let's maybe start diving into more of the core of this session, retail brokers, whether they should go into or not. From your experience, either of you can start with a question. Do you see demand from actual brokerages for such solutions, or those are mostly entrepreneurs looking to go into prop trading space directly as just...
So what kind of solution? What do you mean here?
Just like...
To start up the prop trading?
Yeah.
I think more from our experience as a technology provider, that would be more that emerging company starts from zero rather than retail brokers going, into that, choosing that path. because it can put the business in jeopardy at some point, because now it's a phenomenon, but then we don't know where it's going to go actually eventually. And that's why brokerage at least is established, and then would they want to choose this path? They need to think about all the risks possible. That's why I would say, even coming from our current products, it's from money management pretty much. That would be more from the emerging companies, from like starting from zero.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Look, in terms of consulting for me at PropTradeTech, most of the clients we get coming to us are emerging companies as well. They've come directly from the prop trading space. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and I find it very interesting. And I think the one thing I always highlight about prop firms is the demographics. In my experience on brokerage, average trader, 37 years old. Average prop trader, I find, late 20s. And it's really interesting because I think we see this as a niche within the Forex space, like an offshoot of brokerage. But it's really interesting when you talk to, I was at a conference, a few months ago, and I was talking to a trader, and I was talking to them about, they were trading with prop firms, and I was saying, you should check out this broker and that. And they're like, okay, what's the max drawdown on the broker? And I'm like, well, it's a broker. There's a margin stop out percentage. And he didn't understand what that was. And I found that interesting because it's his first exposure to trading, as a young, 21-year-old. It wasn't a broker. It was a prop firm. And that really showed to me that, this isn't something that just gets cross-sold into brokers, but it's a new product in itself. And in that, brokers shouldn't necessarily be scared of it. I think they're a bit fearful of what they don't know sometimes. And there's a lot of questions around it, which is understandable. But I think it can be viewed sort of as an or product. It's not an or product, it's more of an and product. You see people that, they go through prop firms and, they do the challenges and they get their payouts and they reinvest that in their own brokerage account trading. And in that, it is something that can complement a broker offering, whether a broker wants to enter the space or collaborate with a prop firm themselves. I think there's a lot of pathways there. Where I see the disconnect, which is kind of funny, talking to both sides of it, is because naturally I thought the same thing. I'm like, this is an emerging trend. Brokers would want to get into it. Brokers, it makes sense. They have the infrastructure, they're more compliant, which is really great. But I found it kind of weird because it's almost like you can't, fill a cup that's already full. It's, on the flip side, I talk to brokers about props and I'm like, well, here's how it would work. You do this and this. And they're like, oh, but what's the spread yield I'd earn on this, on managing risk? And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. And I found that very interesting as it's, on both sides, there's a bit of a disconnect there. And I think brokers are the people that are most well-suited to take on props because of the infrastructure. But what they don't get is, and I think what they've let go a bit, was that whole affiliate management, community management side that prop firms do so well. I think that, props are the first to really do that very effectively in this space, and brokers don't understand that as well. It's not part of their skill set. And, vice versa, those people who are good at marketing and building communities aren't the best at infrastructure and things like that. So there's a disconnect where I think if brokers want to enter the space, they have to understand it's not necessarily the same acquisition game. But on the flip side of that, I think that a lot of prop firms in the space need to, jump over that bridge. It's a very marketing first led space. A lot of, young, eager people wanting to dive into this space. But I think, a lot of the lessons a lot of people here have probably seen and learned in the last 5-10 years, they're a bit oblivious to in how they operate. Regulation's going to come one way or another. Payments are going to get harder. Banking's going to get harder. And they need to be thinking multiple steps ahead, have backups, and get legal advice on a lot of different things to stay in the game. So that's probably been, I'd say, the really hectic part of this space the last 1-2 years. A lot of people have been able to enter it very quickly, and they've built some innovative products and some great brands, and I think it's really refreshing in the Forex space. But the downside is, as we know, the good times don't always last forever. You got to be smart about it. And that's sort of what I want to see on the prop side, is a bit more, forward thinking, as the regulation comes in, as things change. And, some people in the space are doing that and are really thinking far ahead, which is great. And some other people, we'll see how they go.
Well, the community aspect of it, which you mentioned, which actually was one of their origins, right? People used to, and they still are, gathering into groups. They're following Telegram groups, forums, chats, to exchange ideas, to learn how to trade together as a community. And prop trading got it right. Whereas with the traditional brokers, we're looking on affiliate networks. It's less about building community and more about feeding the client down the funnel, from my experience, right? But let's actually try to maybe open up and see what are some of the reasons why brokers do not necessarily look into prop trading space.
You want to start?
I think I've talked enough.
Well, why they want to go that direction? I mean, it's one of the options, right? To choose and expand into like prop trading space, but also prop trading is splitting into both like traditional and challenges, right? The modern way. Then the question was why they do want to go or why they don't?
Why do some brokers not consider it?
Consider, because it's just one of the options. They have other more or less risky ways, maybe, right? If it's a medium-sized brokerage, for example, they can always become prime, and that's it. Like they don't need to, try something new or something it's not that big, right? Then what else they can do? They can introduce the money management as well, right? And go that direction, or just continue simply staying the retail broker and grow in the part of like customer success and just expanding there, to grow their volumes, to grow their clients, and that's pretty much it. So why they don't want to go? Because there are some safer ways, more experienced, and then simply just this new modern way of growing from from this perspective, and that's probably it, I would say.
I'd see it that a lot of brokers that are against getting involved, whether it's a tech provider, infrastructure execution provider, or starting a firm, whether within or outside of their brand, I think they view props as a direct competitor. They view it as an or product, whereas I see it as an and product. I see them sort of working together in a lot of ways. I think they see it as, and look, they're not wrong. Look, if you were someone who had $200-300 of cash sitting around, and like I said before, you do the math and it's like, well, if I'm a great trader, that's not going to get me really far in a brokerage account. But if I put in a prop account and I work hard and I prove myself, it's of a lot more value. And so I guess brokers aren't wrong in looking at it like that and saying, they're taking all of our clients from that value proposition. But the thing I'd always say to that is like, well, and brokers might be free to disagree with me on this, is like your $200, $300, $400 clients, if you're a very large, regulated broker in this day and age, they're not the highest revenue generating clients for you. When you take into account marketing costs, onboarding, sales, compliance, everything, those clients aren't actually high revenue generating. And a lot of those clients that are high revenue generating, high deposit for brokers, 5, 10, 15,000, they're not as likely to go into the prop side. They already have that capital accrued to trade themselves. But like I was saying, I see it as a collaborative product. I think a lot of what the community says in prop trading isn't to keep prop trading forever. It's you build your payout, your rev share, and you can go. You could keep being a prop trader, or you could go and trade for yourself with your own money that you've earned through that process. It's like in FX itself. There isn't just one standard product. People go in and out of FX in different ways. They might enter the money management side. They might be their own trader. They might follow a signal. There's a lot of sub products within Forex trading, and I see this is a bit different. To a broker, I understand that, but I think it's still of value to at least collaborate with, in some way, as it's, I think, like I said before, the fact that it grew very organically and community-based means it's a true product. I think people really, traders wanted it before brokers did, and I think that sort of shows, where the trend is ultimately.
Well, I do agree, and I do see that it actually makes more sense for brokers to view it as additional service, as additional maybe channel to attract new customers, to guide them through, right? And we can touch upon that a bit later. But so I think we already covered the broadly why it's like not that important, or like I'm sorry, why they might not be interested in that. But maybe let's try to get back a bit and look broader at the business of a brokerage, right? What are some challenges, or like what are some core challenges they're trying to solve on a daily basis, which later on will get us to the next question and explore how prop trading trends can, help them sort out.
The retail side, you mean, or?
Yeah, just common challenges of retail.
Curious from your experience, and then I'll probably
So you're saying the common challenges of a retail broker?
Yeah, just generally. Let's take a step back. Let's look broadly.
It's kind of tough. I'd say the challenge always comes down to, market activity, market volatility, and you managing your books as a broker. Like that's ultimately the really hard thing that's going on. I think a lot of people have felt that pain, this year. And so I think the whole idea of, brokers relying on the same, there's a few trains of thought on this. I think people think like, this industry is the same. It was the same 10 years ago. It's the same now in managing risk, and, nothing changes. And I think that's a bit of a flawed mentality. I think even though markets, trends will always reoccur, I think that sort of the main challenge brokers are having this year is, monetization and revenue generation. And I think sort of the main hurdle for that right now is maybe how they're managing risk and maybe using outdated methods and things like that. And I think that's been really interesting because I think what I've seen from the prop space is like, it's really interesting, and I don't know if it's because prop trading makes people look at the risk, analyze it more. I've seen like the quality of trader increase quite a lot from the prop space and things like that, and I think market conditions over the last 12 months sort of make that a lot easier for traders as well because volatility's been low. So I think that's a challenge to retail brokers as well throughout the last year. That's a hurdle they need to overcome and understanding their clients a bit better. That's sort of my main take on it.
Tatiana, you want to add something?
I think you're split it into like big fields, right? Marketing, sales, compliance, and so on. I can say a little bit like deeper into each part, right? Because we're getting different requests from brokers. Obviously, we're working with retail part mainly, prop trading as well. But client retention, first of all, right? Then client conversion, because they can come to like demo account and somehow then they need to get, by them I mean the brokers, they need to get them interested and start trading with real funds. Then education is a big thing, but mainly I would say in like Asian region. That's what I've noticed because I'm covering that part. And then the emerging markets, it was like the trend also for this year, I feel like, that people started looking, and companies, started looking into these emerging markets like South Africa, like Latin America, and they are just starting there from zero. Yes, they do have reputation, they do have their brand and name and everything, but then when they're coming into completely new side of these business, there are nobody there. I mean, I might be mistaken, of course, but that's what I can say. And they need to create this brand awareness and the reputation, specifically in that region.
And it's a different game too. I think I always see the flaw of retail brokers. They think, cool, we killed it in Southeast Asia.
Right.
Let's do Latin America, copy and paste the strategy. But, and I think that's sort of the flaw is you view all trading as trading. But I think the way culturally and trading style.
Language as well.
Yeah, language. Massively, people approach trading in Latin America. And even within Latin America, separate countries is very different. And I think it's very, short-sighted. A lot of brokers, and I've seen it before, it's, we're just moving into this region, and it's like you need to know the language, you need people on the ground, and that's there's no shortcuts to that. It's all relationship building and networking. So there's no easy solve all to that.
That is one of the challenges, exactly. So
it's ironically, and it's funny you mentioned that because I came across this, bringing it back to prop trading as well. Like some of the people we were consulting with, or large affiliates for prop firms, I just found it very interesting because, like I said, no technical knowledge of forex, nothing. And I was saying to people like, I don't get it. How are these guys? They're referring so many traders. They're so successful. And you know what it was? I put it down to I'm like, if I go to Africa, Latin America to start business, I find someone who knows the language, knows the culture, knows how things work, knows the traders. And I said to myself eventually, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's because I'm not one of these people active online massively. It's like this guy gets the discords, he gets the people, he's their age, and it's the same strategy even for going into prop space that brokers need to realize. It's like same thing. It's like different languages, different cultures of people, and things like that in itself. It's just not as obvious, and I always found that kind of funny in its own way.
Would you say educational part is one of the challenges for brokerages from your experience? I mean, granted, everybody is trying to force an education.
Exactly. I don't know. Look, some brokers do it really well, the education part. I think it's just always very forced and, to be honest, quite dry, as I'm sure a lot of people will agree. Anyone who's signed up for, I think I had to ditch email addresses because I was just getting 1,000 market updates from 1,000 brokers every day, and half of them, I swear, were the exact same ones. I think some brokers do it really well, the education side, but it's often, very dry. And I ultimately say, like, well, if someone wants to get knowledge on trading, they're more likely to go to a trusted independent source. Again, like education is its own industry in Forex. They're more likely to go to a trusted source than, the broker they trade with's like side product, which is education. Not to say it can't be done. Some brokers do a really good job on it. But I think where prop trading does it sort of better is because it's more you're involved in it. It's like your challenge, as much as you're proving yourself, it is your education, the numbers are there, and you're learning from your own activities. And I think a lot of prop firms too have also partnered with or built their own trading journals, which is getting, a lot more, I think what used to be just Excel spreadsheets 10 years ago as a trading journal is now like automated, very efficient technology that, people are using quite a lot. I get a lot of requests, from certain prop firms on that. And, I think that's really interesting. So they're doing education in a much more involved, automated, data-based way rather than, here's, my prediction for NFP this Friday in an email, which, isn't really worth much to a trader when there's, you could Google that or there's, numerous publications you'd probably go to before an email sent to you by your broker.
But education is an essential part, right? It's crucial because also like a little bit of a pain of a technology provider as well. The fact that the brokers are getting money management tool, PAM, social trading, MAM, whatever it is, they expect just to get it done and then, the traders will start using it. But it's not as simple as that. They need to actually train their traders, their clients to use it, what kind of features it has, what kind of, how it can be managed from within the system, from this portal, from this web user interface. But it's not always done or not explained explicitly and well. And I think this is like a must, actually, and that is a challenge that might be faced in case that is not done initially.
How do you reckon you cross that, though? I've found from the broker side, it's like you put the video walkthrough, you give them the PDF guide. If it's an online native piece of tech, if you develop it, you can do sort of the pointers and walkthroughs. And I feel like you do all of that, and you still get messages from people saying, "I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense." You know what I mean? So what do you
getting the feedback, so you can improve that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I did notice that one of the things prop trading firms do very well is actually education. They're a user is engaged from the start, and they're walking through. And as you mentioned, they are looking at their own statistics. They their actions affect the statistics they see, the dashboards, and then they can react and they learn and try new strategies. And by the end of the course challenge, right, they get much more prepared for the real life.
Yeah, I think it's more obvious why they failed. It's like I failed because of drawdown. I can work on that. Whereas I think at a brokerage account, when you stop out or blow the account or do something stupid, you're kind of, it's an entry in your trading, history in MetaTrader or whatever platform, and that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. So there's that. But I also think even from the content side of education, I think prop firms, like I said before, I think they speak a much more community, organic, direct language with people. It's not, person in a suit going over economic forecasts. I think it's a very more honest, open discussion of, as pretentious as it is, more like the art of trading and like how people approach it from different things. They do more podcasts, for example. I would say if you go on YouTube now and you're really looking up most, trading podcasts, influencers, educators, more likely than not, they're going to be more associated with a prop firm right now than a broker. Whereas 2 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. So I think there's a much more honest, open, conversational form of education that happens in prop firms that I think brokers, maybe for more regulatory reasons and other things, kind of abstain from. But I think that honesty, it's just a bit more authentic, which I think, in the chaotic world of FX, I think traders appreciate that bit more.
Well, I think you, like all of us, mentioned quite a bunch of different ideas. Let's maybe try to put them into practice, or talk a bit about how the experience and the new ideas coming from prop trading space can be implemented, integrated into brokerage to improve their services, if they don't want to go to to funded accounts. Maybe they just want to take bits of pieces, gamification here, education here, challenges there.
That's 100%. Correct. I think brokers, regardless of whether they want to be a party to prop trading in any, way, shape or form, I think, the trend that's made prop trading so popular with traders, they can still learn from. I think authenticity is the big one. I think, you go to a brokerage site and, they put on this big display of, corporate professionalism, but, they're an offshore broker located in an island I can't point out on a map, and it's like, you know what I mean? That just looks questionable, and I think there is always this aura of professionalism, trading, finance, and that. But I think at the end of the day, trading's become a lot more, a lot more retail. A lot more everyday people are doing it. A lot of younger people are doing it. At the end of the day, and they want that sort of social proofing in that. Even if you are regulated, you have that, on the, the footer of your site, or I have a license here. It's like, well, who's your CEO? Who's leading you? Is there any face of the brand at all? What do you guys stand for? What's your view on trading and things like that? Do you guys actually trade? These are things people want to know. Otherwise, you're just kind of a bit of a faceless company. So you can have all the regulation and, massive footer at the bottom of your site as you want, but there's not necessarily a lot of trust inherent in that. And I think even when you look at things like Trustpilot, a lot of prop firms out there have more reviews than some of the biggest brokers in the world on Trustpilot, because it's a product people genuinely, as much as I guess it cops a lot of criticism, like anything new that's rising, people genuinely love it. And because when you're involved in community and you meet people through it, you're much more attached to it. And I think, regardless of how brokers act, I think putting a much more authentic, personalized brand out there builds a lot more trust. I mean, in any product, to me, it's common sense. I think it's something that, brokers just need to learn and make that jump over to.
Trust is a good point. I thought about it and install it. But another
I read your mind.
Another thing that comes to my mind, actually, if we're talking about modern prop trading, coming back to challenges, right? How good it can be used in terms of retail broker is that it can be simply a verification for, providers, signal providers or money managers in terms of money management tools and systems. They can simply see who can do it, because now who we're looking at in terms of master traders, anybody can become it. They just deposit some money into account, and then they can just choose to be the, signal provider. But how do we know if he or she is actually good? Brokers might potentially, check it and then decide which accounts will be playing this role or which accounts will be showcased in the leaderboard. But the whole point is that nobody's going to do it, because it's like we're talking about big numbers. Are you going to monitor it all? I doubt it. So in this case, you can actually verify it by doing this challenge competition to see who is performing well, and then verifying them as the master guys. Otherwise, you're just going to go back to the slave side and just follow someone.
It's really cool you've brought that up, actually, because I've already seen that happen. And again, this is sort of that organic community thing I love. That's kind of already happened in a lot of prop firms. I've met people that they've built these huge, managed strategies. Maybe they're running like a money management, environment at a broker or, at a liquidity provider. And the way they built it was, they had a lot of people, following them. They were doing their prop trading challenge, and, that was on a leaderboard, or that was public, or they were linking it to, an online, sort of tracking service or something like that to view performance. And, people in the Discord look at it and they're like, hey, you're actually a really good trader. Would you trade for me, and things like that. And these communities are building with each other. And that already passively happens, I think, within the prop community. And that's what's really cool, is people are building their own, trading-based FX businesses through being successful at a prop firm, and then meeting people within that prop community. And not many brokers can, lay claim to something similar to that. And so that's already happening at a passive level. And I think you're right there in that it's kind of like for verification of money manager performance, almost like a pre-fund or management. Yeah, you could really be doing these tests and things like that just as some more social proof. And it comes back to trust.
And the quality will be growing as well from that. Otherwise,
exactly.
Again, anybody can do it.
And I feel like there are so many opportunities for gamification to shine through. Because, right here, in London, FCA is quite against gamification in trading apps. And understandably so, because many of the brokerages are trying to use it to take advantage of the clients. They try to increase their activity or trading activity to influence their decisions. But prop firms are not doing that for that. They're doing it for the reason of improving the actual traders, improving the service, improving or guiding them in a more interactive way, rather than just here's your trading terminal, go for it.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is I think people view gamification as a bit of a dirty word. They're linking it back to online gaming, gambling, that.
Think about Vegas, right?
Yeah, exactly. You think gamification, and that's what comes to mind. But I think people forget that a great, and psychology shows this, is gamification of things actually improves learning in psychology. I'm speaking anecdotally here, broadly, but I think that's the thing that is important, is the, gamification, if you want to use that word, really it's saying, there's a bunch of levels, there's a bunch of parameters you need to pass or not hit to be successful to move through. But the thing about that is when you give people that, you're giving them data that shows that. And, people can learn from data. They can see that. Whereas if you just say, here's your account, deposit, trade, it's not really, there's nothing really to that. If you want to call it gamification or not, that's one thing. But I think it's just really what that means is giving people data, the ability to pass, move forward. They could breach, not pass, and learn from it because they have that data. And that's really what that means. So, yeah, you can look at it in both ways, gamification, but I think it has a lot of positives ultimately.
All right. So what's next? Do you think it's a viability or a liability for a brokerage?
There's a lot of different ways brokers can work with prop firms. Maybe they want to provide margin account trading execution for like the higher levels of prop trading. Maybe they want to start their own prop brand. Maybe they want to use the verification for their own sort of services, or they use it as a retention tool or a demo account conversion tool. There's so many different ways they can learn from it, or as I said, they could learn from, I think, the authenticity or the branding side of it that I think props excel at. So I think in one shape or form, whatever the future holds, for regulation, things changing, I think it's an emerging trend that traders want. And at the end of the day, brokers are in the business of servicing traders, so they should in some way pay attention or learn from this. So I think in a lot of ways it's a big viability for them.
I agree. But first of all, I think it's important to define what business model to follow. We were looking at different ways, right, to evolve, to look into. And then if you don't have the full understanding of what you want, then why would you just risk because this is just trendy? No, I don't think so. Then what else? Well, the regulations as well. I mean, you got to pay attention to that and make sure that you are a couple of steps in front of that, right? Because
and that's the thing, I think, because I've heard that from brokers too, and it's understandable. That's why brokers are great at what they do, because they're compliant and they're regulated. And you say to them, like, some of them might not want to get involved because they're like, oh, well, we don't know about the regulation and that in this space. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough, but if anyone should know how to handle, changing regulation and that, it's, you got a 10-person compliance team. Like, you should be looking at it from the other angle, which is how can we make it work and get a head start on that? Because, and I can confirm this, a lot of people in the prop space, aren't thinking ahead. Like, and it's something I really want them to. And, some of the good actors are, but I think it's, if anyone could learn how to get ahead who no regulators worked with them, it's brokers. So depends really on what their sort of taste for it is, I guess, and their appetite. But I think they're the best suited to get one step ahead with their existing frameworks and knowledge.
But you also cannot predict it, really. So it's like
that's why there's an appetite they have to have.
Well,
ultimately.
yeah, that's true.
But they're resourced, which is the main thing, I think.
I think at the end of the day, you got to be ready to take punches for it in case it doesn't work out. But would you like to just sit and wait until something happens, or would you like to try and see if it's going to work out for you? No?
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's always been the game, sort of with compliance regulation and things like that. It's do you want to get in, get a foot forward on it, or do you want to wait until the regulation comes and then play? There's pros and cons to each.
I mean, it's always in financial industry this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you talk to them and, they say, oh, well, I shouldn't do it for these reasons. And I say, but you could for these reasons. And what it comes back to, it is literally just trading. It's risk reward at the end of the day. And you got to make a judgment call on that. But like I said, even if it's not getting fully involved in prop trading, there's, you can't deny there's a lot to learn on the broker side from the prop space and what it's been doing. So I think there's some crossover there in some way.
That's what makes it exciting, I guess.
Yeah,
that's why we have pretty much the full.
Yeah, that's why we have this talk right now.
All right, thank you for your answers. I think we can open up the space for questions from the audience. I hope there are any. Don't be shy, please.
We covered everything.
I think
guys.
everybody's tired.
Everybody is tired.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one.
As a retail broker, how would you monetize?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
As a retail broker, how would you monetize the prop trading?
Yeah, great question. And look, there's a few different forms this can come in. So obviously, there are some prop firms out there who run all of their own infrastructure. There are some out there who don't. So obviously, as a retail broker, depending on sort of how advanced your infrastructure is, a lot of these prop firms, sort of running certain strategies upstream. So they do need a place to, execute trades and that too on other activities they're doing. So you could just take them on as a trading client, which really is sort of like, the main game of being a retail broker. There's other things you could do, such as consulting on the compliance side. I think, there's a lot of brokers out there that have large compliance teams who, aren't always working around the clock. That's a resource you can monetize and, assist prop firms with. Other methods could be, like we were saying, maybe you start your own firm as a separate brand as well. You have all the infrastructure and resources, or maybe you develop sort of a direct relationship with a prop firm as well. I think, like I was saying before, a lot of people, when they're done with they've gotten some payouts from a prop firm, maybe they need a, regulated broker to partner with, and you can form a collaboration with these prop firms. There's a lot of different opportunities to monetize prop firms as a broker. And I think what's good about that is, if it does come back to risk, there's different, risk levels for all of those, ultimately, at the end of the day. I mean, if you're taking on a firm for any sort of, live strategies it runs, well, they're really just a corporate client of yours. It's no different. You treat them like really any other client. And so all the way from that, all the way through to, diving in and starting your own firm, there's different sort of levels you could, operate in this space in, which I think gives a lot of opportunity to brokers.
you. It's really interesting, you said earlier, in regards to building trust, and that's something that the prop firm industry has done really, really well. And one thing about the influencers involved in the prop firm industry, a lot of them are seen as heroes because it's a low entry fee. Like you said, it's about $500 for a 100K funded account. And those success stories inspire so many traders, especially those, as you say, in their 20s. So building that trust, I think the brokerage industry can actually learn from those, that sense of building trust through the heroes who are actually making it happen. They're very successful. And in my experience, I've been trading since 2014, so I saw the growth of the prop firm. And for me, it was such an amazing solution. And I capitalized on it. And so I think that the brokerage industry, like you said, can learn from the prop industry, not necessarily to copy exactly what they're doing, but in terms of building trust with the future clientele, because these 20-year-olds will one day be the 37-year-olds with 2, 3, 5K to put into a prop account. A broker account.
Exactly. I think it's. Sorry, I'm not sure if there was a question at the end of that. I'm sort of just interrupted, but that's a great point too, and that's what I always looked at it with, was sort of when I was sort of crossing over from the brokerage into the prop space. That was, I think, the thing that the light bulb went off, where it's like, because I've always said for ages, like, this was happening over the last 10 years, a lot of young people do crypto derivatives trading, getting into DeFi. There was all like the US stock options trading, GameStop saga, and you're like, I see when young people talk about trading online, it's never about Forex. And, as someone who's, I'd like to think kind of young, it kind of worried me because I'm like, well, the average Forex trader is just getting older and older. What's the demographics is shifting, so how do you appeal to younger people? And it was almost like that was a light bulb moment with props, where I'm like, well, young people love this, you know what I mean? It's a different value proposition, it's community driven, a different level of trust too. And I think what you raised, and I didn't mention it before, is the whole idea of, you're lifting up your heroes, your successful people. Like, prop firms, they interview their best traders, they put them on that pedestal, they show them off to the world, and then, like I was saying before, some of those people who's just like someone trading in their bedroom ends up getting on this interview, then they get contacted by heaps of people saying, tell me how you did this, how did you get that payout? And they start their own education business, and it starts like this chain of events. And I think that's, you could give me like the biggest FX broker in the world and say to me, like, name one of their clients, and I'm going to be like, unless I know someone who trades there, probably not. But then you've got prop firms who's literally, taking this guy and interviewing them and putting them out there to the world. And it's like, it goes two ways. It makes the brand have social proof, but then you pretty much, that level of loyalty from that person is huge. I think it's really awesome.
But I have a meeting question, actually. Do you think that retail broker does not build trust? Or is it like experiencing any issues in this regard?
I think what you were saying earlier about the education side, it's really dry. It's just regurgitated information. It doesn't come across genuine. In my experience, no, I don't trust brokers. And I'm an influencer myself. I've built communities on the back of my success in prop trading. Because prop trading, in fact, because of the rules behind it, in fact, made me a better trader. And I didn't have that with the broker, because I can just trade with my own biases. I make my own mistakes. There's no limits. For example, with a prop firm that I was working with a few years ago, City Traders Imperium, they had a trailing stop loss. And so that forced me to reduce my risk in order to keep the account in the first place. And so those parameters, in fact, improved my trading. So I would say that, like I said, in terms of trust, I would say the prop firms do it so well. And the brokerage industry can learn so much from that, because when I started to talk to people about what I do, I became the hero. It's almost like I'm the bedroom trader who then eventually left the rat race and built a community teaching traders. And so you were completely spot on with what you're saying about these individuals. And,
Thank you.
And it is community-led. And that's why these prop firms it's like Metcalfe's law, with DeFi, with crypto, it's about community. And this is what the brokers are not doing very well.
So coming back to the question about challenges, then something to take with you, then building trust. as a retail broker.
Thank you, everybody, for participating, attending our session.
Thank you
I
very
hope
much.
it was
Thank you for coming.
engaging for you.